Two major storylines have been shaping the conversation around Donald Trump in recent weeks. The first involves increasing concern over his health, with many noticing possible signs of cognitive and physical challenges. The second centers on his ongoing push to go after critics, especially those who bring up these concerns or challenge his narrative. Now, these two threads have collided in a way that could be especially damaging for Trump. He was recently accused of trying to downplay or hide signs of decline, raising new questions about his condition and his ability to lead. We're going to break all of that down, but before we do, if you're finding value in this coverage, please take a second to hit the like button, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps support the work we're doing. Now, before diving into how Trump was reportedly trying to manage these concerns, let's start with someone who called it out directly after his speech at Quantico, Lawrence O'Donnell.
And I guess maybe we should accept Donald Trump's judgment about that one thing, that the madman orange makeup he slathers on himself makes him look better. Maybe it does. We don't know. Maybe the actual sight of the actual color of his 79-year-old skin is much worse than the orange clown confection that he chooses, but we don't know. Or maybe the orange junk on his face is yet another proof that the man has no capacity to make a judgment about anything, including the way he looks, never mind nuclear weapons. What was he thinking backstage when his Secretary of Defense, who had to promise to stop drinking to get confirmed by the Senate, insulted all of the commanding officers in the room with this kind of idiocy?
It's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are.
Okay, Pete, how about fat presidents? How about a president who has been fat every day of his political career? Is that a bad look? All of those generals can button their uniform jackets. All of those admirals can, every one of them. So there's the Secretary of Defense, who may or may not be managing his reported drinking problem, telling all of those commanding officers that they better never look as bad as Donald Trump, who can't even button his suit coat jacket. There was suspense in the room today when Donald Trump was giving his speech. There was no suspense about would he cross the line that you never cross with the military as president. Everyone knew he was going to do that. Everyone knew that he doesn't know there's a line. Everyone knew he was going to foolishly waste the admirals and generals' time telling them about how many swing states he wanted. And of course he did. The suspense in the room was whether the very, very tired, almost sleepy 79-year-old man at the microphone was going to make it through that 1 hour and 11-minute speech. And there were times in the middle of a sentence that it would seem like he just might drop right there, might not even finish that sentence. And what he seemed to be showing to the generals and the world is that he might not have the physical strength to make it through the 3 years, 3 months, and 20 days left of his presidency. Is that what has given J.D. Vance just spring in his step lately? Is that why the vice president looks so happy these days? Donald Trump has never looked physically weaker, or when he did today, weaker in every sense of that word, physically, mentally, because Donald Trump is uneducable. He still doesn't understand why he walked into a room of military commanders today and faced silence.
Thank you very much, Pete. Great job you're doing, too. Fantastic job.
Everyone can see how unfit Donald Trump is for leadership. That's why it was almost ironic hearing Pete Hegseth talk about military generals supposedly being out of shape or not looking the part. Meanwhile, Donald Trump himself struggles with his own image, from his constant attempts to project strength to the way his appearance has become part of late-night punchlines. He often comes across as unfocused, slurring, and visibly struggling to hold things together. So when Pete tries to point fingers at others, it only highlights the double standard. And let's be honest, it's not the generals embarrassing this country. The bigger issue is Donald Trump himself, and that goes beyond looks. The real concern is what's happening inside. And that's exactly what Trump was just caught trying to cover up. Google accused of blocking searches about Trump, 79, and dementia. Google has been accused of hiding AI search results when users seek information about whether 79-year-old Donald Trump has dementia. Typing the prompt, "Does Trump have dementia?" into Google's search bar did bring up a list of websites along with the message, "An AI overview is not available for this search," The Verge reported. The AI overview notice is no longer displayed at the top of the search results. When switched to AI mode, Google does not provide a generated summary of information. Instead, it displays the same top web page results for the query. This is also no AI summary if you search for whether Trump shows signs of Alzheimer's. By contrast, Google does provide an AI summary about 82-year-old Joe Biden, who has also faced questions about his mental acuity during his time in office. Assessing whether Joe Biden shows signs of dementia is a complex question with various perspectives and different conclusions. Google's AI mode states, it also lists examples of why Biden may be experiencing cognitive decline or apparent signs of dementia. When you type, "Does Biden show signs of Alzheimer's?" into AI mode, the response also says the answer is complex with a complex question with no definitive answer, and that it remains elusive without a formal medical diagnosis. The AI summary presents both sides of the debate, noting that Special Counsel Robert Hur's report on Biden's handling of classified documents described the former president as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The Verge suggested Google might be worried about the president's response to questions about his alleged mental decline. YouTube, which Google owns, also agreed this week to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit brought by Trump after his account was suspended in the wake of the January 6th attack on the Capitol in 2021. Let's get one thing straight. Giving in to bullies never works. The moment you hand over your lunch money, the bully only comes back demanding more. That's exactly what we're seeing with Donald Trump. When opponents choose to settle lawsuits or step aside before the fight is finished, they don't stop him. They actually encourage him to push even harder. The reality is, Trump is showing clear signs of decline. Yet big platforms often make it harder for people to find that information, and the mainstream media rarely puts a spotlight on it. That's why it's so important for us to show the truth. Donald Trump is not the strong figure he claims to be. He's an aging politician trying to project strength, while striking out at anyone who dares to say otherwise. His attempts to suppress free speech are proof of how worried he is about people seeing his real condition. Representative Jasmine Crockett summed it up perfectly when she called him out. Let's take a look.
This particular president has decided that he wants to shake down people as relates to the First Amendment because he has filed not one lawsuit, not two lawsuits, but he has filed numerous lawsuits. He filed a lawsuit against the New York Times. He filed one against the Wall Street Journal, against CBS, against ABC, against the Des Moines Register. He is doing all of this because he wants to quash any speech that is not appreciative or lauding him, which is pretty much anything that's factual. So let's talk a few facts about these January 6 felons that should still be incarcerated because they went through the process, but because they were doing things on his behalf, of course, he wanted to let them go. So they released more than 1,000 people who participated in the insurrection on this government, many of whom who had previous criminal records, like Mr. Theodore Mendenforth, who was convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, or Mr. Peter Schwartz, who had 38 prior convictions, including one where he beat his wife by repeatedly punching and biting her. Trump also pardoned Mr. David Daniel, who was convicted of production and possession of child pornography. Trump also pardoned Mr. Daniel Ball, who, quote, threw an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers during the Capitol riot. He also had a record for, quote, domestic violence by strangulation. I'm not done. Trump also pardoned Mr. Andrew Taki, who sent nudes to an undercover law enforcement officer who was posing as a 15-year-old girl. Mr. Casey Hopkins also received a pardon from Trump, and Mr. Hopkins was convicted of forcible rape. According to court records, he, quote, had forcible intercourse with the victim, choked her to the point of impairing her vision, banged her head into a wall, and urinated into the victim's mouth as he humiliated her. These are the people that he decided to release in the streets of D.C. So if anybody does need to clean up D.C., I would agree it is this man, because he is the one that is causing half the crime that we have. Not only is he participating in the crime, but we know that he instigated the insurrection. And if I did say that I had one issue with the Biden-Harris administration, it is the fact that they did not move forward and make sure that this man was put where he should have been put. Because the last time I checked as a criminal defense attorney, and Mr. Attorney General, you may have a different experience, but I never had a defendant that had 34 convictions for felonies and did not spend one day in jail. Never in my life. And the last time I checked, the party of law and order is the only one that decided that they would be out of order and decided to nominate someone who was not only indicted but was actually convicted of multiple felonies. That has never happened in this country, and it is a shame that we are dealing with it now, and now he wants to tell y'all how to do your jobs.
Okay.
Donald Trump will keep going after free speech for as long as people let him. Every time major media outlets, corporations, or institutions give in to his pressure, it only motivates him to push further. His ability to abuse power has thrived in part because too many have been unwilling to stand up and resist. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez captured that reality perfectly when she said this.
They are weaker than they look. And it is important that we remember that, because what they rely on is the impression of power, the perception of inevitability, in us giving up in advance to say, oh, what's going to happen if I stand up, etc. Nothing's going to happen. They rely on that perception of inevitability and power so that people comply in advance and acquiesce in advance and give up in advance. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump is at record levels of unpopularity in his tenure. The Republican House is at record levels of unpopularity. They are underwater across the board, and they know it. And that is causing them to double down in public, but it is backfiring. That is why, whether it's a shutdown, whether it's all of this, they want us to blink first. And we have too much to save. Protecting people is too important a task for us to give up before anything even starts. So they may want to send people in, but these National Guardsmen do not want to be turned against their fellow Americans. We're seeing this here in Washington, D.C. It is an insult. Donald Trump is insulting the service members of this country by putting them on these silly tasks that they themselves do not want to be enforced.
What we're seeing right now is a former president who leans more on fear than on real strength. He wants people to think his rise can't be stopped, but that's simply not the case. He can be challenged, and he can be held accountable, both in the courts and in the court of public opinion. The key is that we don't back down. We must keep speaking out, standing strong, and moving forward. And that's exactly what we'll continue doing right here on this channel. If you want to support that work, hit subscribe, drop a like, and if you made it to the end, leave a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you.